Welcome back to Remodeling Reinvented, the podcast where we explore how thoughtful design, architecture, and remodeling can completely transform the way you live in your home. I'm your host, Caitlin Copley, joined as always by my wonderful producer, Diana Volker. So today's episode is a special one because we're joined by Jackson Design and Remodeling's founder and CEO, Todd Jackson. Todd is someone who has seen thousands of remodeling journeys from the very beginning and is here to give us his expert insights. Todd has spent decades helping homeowners rethink what's possible in their homes, and today we're talking about what he's learned along the way. Hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Welcome, Todd.
Hey, thank you very much for having me today, and I'm excited to share a
Yeah,
bit about our past history.
excited to hear your story. So let's start back at the beginning. You started Jackson Design and Remodeling back in 1989. So what was your mindset back then? What made you start a company like this?
You know, I started in '89. I was literally 20 years old. Just 2 years prior to that, I had actually finished high school. Found a couple of gentlemen that wanted an apprentice, and I learned and learned and learned. I had grown up with a little bit more of an entrepreneurial spirit. So from
Yeah.
that point on, we just kind of took it on there. I can remember though being that first year, my grandfather says, "Hey, seems like it's a little tough out there. There was a recession going on and challenges, and I think." When you don't know any better, you just knew that you had to go knock at a lot of doors,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
Wow.
Were you always interested in homes and design and remodeling, or were there other interests that you had at that time?
I think throughout my life, I had been always. My dad always had the best shop and the coolest tools, and that's kind of what he had taught us boys. Yeah.
What does your dad do?
You know what? My father was actually QA at North Island. So he was the guy who made sure they inspected all the parts and pieces that went into the big helicopters and planes.
Well, that's really interesting. So, going back, how did you start the business? I know you worked independently, and then as the company grew, you made it, you formed it into more what it is today, design build. So, how did that process start and kind of go through?
I think for many, many years, the company was really more of an installation company.
Okay.
And so we would do smaller projects, and there would be kitchens and baths. And over a period of time, we actually started to install for Home Depot Expo.
Okay.
And that did give us an opportunity to kind of work with more of the interior design side. And that really, I think I picked up on the benefits of working with, a true interior designer.
Yeah.
I think at the time, not too many people were utilizing, that construction side, the build side, and the interior design side. It was almost like interior design was the last thing that just kind of fell through.
Oh, like an afterthought.
An afterthought. Oh yeah, by the way, we actually had to select our cabinets,
Yeah.
not thinking through the entire process.
Got it. Okay. So when you first started that, I'm sure you enjoyed working in people's homes. Was there a moment when you realized, geez, it's more about transforming people's lives and building that connection with clients. So were you always a people person? Were you drawn to people and working with them? And it's a very personal experience. So
It's even in the beginning, we kind of when I had first started, actually, I started specializing in more skylights.
oh, skylights,
And
yes.
you walk into somebody's space, and maybe that's a kitchen or a family room, and it's dim and it's dark, and literally we were able to transform that space in a day. So when
Yeah.
you walk back in the next day, the entire space is bright and cheery, and there's life inside there.
Yeah.
I think that right there really started that process of, wow, I can really change how some people live, right? And that wasn't the goal, right?
Yeah.
But the effects of what you can do to help people.
Like changing their environment.
Totally.
And it's just such a quick thing.
So that was always nice to be able to do it instantly versus
Yeah.
how we change it over a series of months.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do have to say is that there is a reward when you work with people and then you're changing their You just, it's funny, people come to you saying, hey, I need a new room and I could use another office, or I want to remodel my space for
Right.
'cause I want to have guests over,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And then you go through that process and then just, you meet them up after the whole project is done and the smile on their face and the communicating that how that has impacted their life. And
Yeah.
I think for a lot of us, it brings
Yeah.
something, it's deeper than just building and, trying to,
Exactly.
make a living.
Well, and you celebrated the 35-year anniversary of Jackson Design Remodeling a couple years ago. Now we're in year 37, but I'm sure you had past clients come up to you and say that exact thing. And did that make you feel good?
I mean, I do have to say is that it's all about our clients. I'll give you, I had a Mrs. Schickler who
Hmm.
I think I was 22 and 22, maybe 23. And Mrs. Schickler let me build her room addition in the back of her house. So she let me build my first room addition.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
literally look, I'm 23. I look like
You're
I'm
like, really?
13.
Okay. We're
Exactly.
doing this.
I can remember, and then over the years, I had done some more. She had a son named Patrick, and I can remember it was maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago that Patrick came into the office, and I was surprised to see him, and I talked to him, and I said, "Hey, how's your mom?" And unfortunately, she had just that's why he was there.
Yeah.
I mean, she would have
Yeah.
asked,
Oh,
but she had said, "I just want you to know for the last 20 years, she has said how much of an impact we had on her." Right?
wow.
"Hey, do you remember Todd Jackson?" You know what I mean?
Oh.
And here I am with my, you know, I'm 50 years old. I've got his son who's also in the same age, and we're crying and hugging it out inside my so that's the impact, and that's I mean, what a reward.
It's lasting. It's not just a moment.
Yeah.
It is lasting. Wow.
Oh,
So
sure.
yeah, that's really awesome. So we touched on a little bit earlier. So the term design build now is a little bit more mainstream, but back then it didn't really exist in San Diego, did it? Or
Well, I think design build comes in a lot of flavors,
yeah.
right? I would think when we first started, design build meant I am utilizing a draftsperson. It could be an architect, right? And typically the construction company. Typically they're going to do at the time more just floor plans and elevations, and that's what you got.
Yeah.
Right? It was really probably more that the person dealing up front with the client would be going back and telling the architect what to do,
Mhm.
okay, and then working through back and forth then. We surely didn't have, more of an integrated process,
Got
where you have a team of people who are standing and working with a client in front of utilizing all their specialty services, so
Okay. So, from homeowners' perspective, how does that impact having one integrated team? How does that impact them and their experience?
I think there's lots of yeah, I can take you down a rabbit hole. There's a lot of different things that I think should come of it if it's done proper.
Yeah.
So in our process, we're going to have we have somebody from our architecture department and an interior design,
Mhm.
and then we have somebody, a client director who's going to work with you to gather all your information. We do a pretty good job at a very comprehensive interview,
Mhm.
gathering up all the information, how you're going to use the space, what were you anticipating, looking at the space. And then when we come back as a team, we're going to be able to, throw out different ideas, right, and brainstorm. I think that's really where some of the magic happens. And I think it's versus an isolated, hey, I've given the draftsperson or the architect or interior designer, hey, an idea. Can you give me what you think?
Mhm.
And I think the trick on that is, right, we all come from somewhere,
Mhm.
and our back experiences and our knowledge allows us to design something and put something together.
Yeah.
I think the benefit is that when you really have somebody who's, has high strength on the architectural side,
Mhm.
and you have somebody who's very talented at the interior design side, and then you also have somebody who's also helping guide people. So it's always cool. We can always come up with a lot of designs and
Yeah.
always blow our budget, right? We have to have somebody there to try and help guide us.
Yeah.
It also allows three people's interpretation of what our clients have said,
Mhm.
right? Because
Yeah.
I may absorb what that client, or I may pick up on what that client has said differently than somebody else in the design process. So
Yeah.
that being in that collaborative environment, I just think is brings more exposure to more experience.
It's like when it works, it can be magical. Like it's a magical synergy and I think the client sees the payoff in the end, hopefully.
A couple of things so that process, I
Yeah.
told you kind of about the process, but really, what should it do? Hopefully, it's going to reduce the design time, right?
Mm.
Because
Time frame.
hopefully, you have multiple people working on it. You're going to get closer to the idea sooner than later. It should reduce costs. And you're like, how can that reduce costs? Well, that doesn't mean it's going to reduce the upfront cost.
Yeah.
What it will do is it's going to expose you to the different ideas and what their costs are on the front side. But the difference would be on the back side. I think what happens is a lot of people go through a process, right? They work on the 80% of the project,
Mhm.
okay, kind of forgetting about that last 20. Well, that last 20 is where all the money is, right?
Yeah.
It's all the change orders, it's all that kind of stuff. And I think if it's done correctly and there's a lot of planning, hey, the project may be a little bit higher investment than you were anticipating.
Yeah.
But if you know it going in, most people can handle that, right?
Yeah.
It's the unnervy change order after change order that drives costs. And I think Jackson does a pretty good job of that industry wide.
Mhm.
Change orders are typically going to be 20% above what you've signed for.
Mhm.
And Jackson really, we strive and we typically hit that 4% a year.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned you bring in architecture, interior design. I know there's all kinds of technological things they do behind the scenes. Like, are there things that the team does behind the scenes that the clients don't ever see that you want to share that contributes to their experience?
So a couple things on the technology side, most people don't realize, hey, when we go out there to measure, we actually do it digitally, right? We've
Mhm.
got a machine that we will literally hit, 50 different spots on your property, and it digitally records those areas, and then
Like
they put it.
3D.
So the difference is that I can now see that outlet within millimeters of where the location is on the wall if we need to. So it
Yeah.
really allows us to get a little bit more, and it streamlines that process from something that may take somebody a day to now it takes somebody an hour and a half to digitize an entire property,
Right.
allowing us to move quicker, faster, and then also, right, be more cost effective.
Yeah.
One of the things I think sometimes is I don't think that a client understands how many times our teams are meeting with each other about their project, right? They see us face to face when they come into the office, they see us face to face, but they don't realize, hey, we've had a large series of meetings
Mhm.
prior to for clarity and maybe there's some design changes.
Problem solving.
100%. And then I don't think they realize what it really takes to put together a thorough estimate.
Yeah.
Our scopes of work are sometimes 40, 50 pages in depth, right?
Mhm.
We've probably, at any one time, we could have touched 50 different vendors, right? To
Mhm.
confirm what those investments are going to be and maybe best practices. And there's a number of different things. So there's a huge amount of work goes
Right.
into getting these things done.
As the company changed over the years into that design, build, integrated team model, was there a project early on that you can think of that really confirmed that route that you're like, "That was a good call?"
I don't necessarily know if it was one project, but I just think it's the feedback that you get from clients, and it's the consistent, right?
Yeah.
Right. And, it's if you have something that's a one off, and hey, sometimes you got lucky,
Yeah.
right? But I think that if you consistently are getting the same feedback from, hey, this is what my experience was,
Yeah.
this is the result of what that looks like. I think that probably was when we felt like, hey, we may have something here.
Yeah. This might be a good thing to think about.
Yeah.
And you had started the monthly remodeling seminars about 20 years ago. to educate homeowners. What made you think of doing those? Because now they're a little more common. You see them around town, but that was pretty innovative back then.
We were blessed. I think could have been like 2005. So we were blessed to actually get into our world headquarters in um, and we had just remodeled the office and that kind of stuff, and we just wanted to kind of have an opportunity to be able to show off our facility. And
Yeah.
I think over the years, though, this is again, it's funny. You start off on a journey and a path, and you just sometimes the trip just takes you to this place that you didn't know. And I think this industry, I think, has a lot of really, really good people that work in it. And then I think sometimes you have people that may or may not be quite as business savvy or some, and not necessarily on the client side. I'm more talking about on the construction side,
Hmm.
right? And as many of the clients who have come to us and worked with us on projects, right, through those seminars, I think we could probably triple that number. Who, hey, maybe Jackson wasn't the right fit for them, that's part of coming the learning
Hmm.
process, right? But I can tell you that they walked away with information on how to find that contractor, how to select that contractor, how to make sure you're paying that contractor, items that help guide them through a successful remodel,
Yeah.
right? And hey, I'm not supposed to pay 25% down. I'm not supposed to, I should be getting this kind of paperwork. And I think anything, that's where we have affected probably the community the most, right?
100%. Yeah, like it's a win-win no matter what.
Yeah.
They left with knowledge they did not have previously, and you armed them with that information, so now they won't get screwed over, hopefully, whether or not they work with you, you know?
It's kind of, when you're standing there, right? And there's a husband and wife, and I'm describing a process or a situation, and the wife's nudging the husband, I told you so.
I was right.
Or I would have people come up and just say, I went through all of that. That's
Yeah.
exactly, and it's
Yes.
not the
Yes.
process I want to go through.
And that's unfortunate,
Yeah.
when you hear those stories.
Well, people, I mean, this is a major, it's inviting people in, and this is probably what could be one of the largest investments minus that purchase of the house. And then you're inviting people into a private space,
That's true.
and as much as you want to invite them in, you eventually want to invite them out.
Yeah, no, that's great. And speaking of research, so when homeowners first start thinking about remodeling, are there things they should focus on first when they're doing or starting their research? Are there specific things just to get them started that they should be doing? Is it just walking through their home and notating, this bothers me?
Yeah, I think if I'm looking at project side aspect of it, that's probably where it's going to start, right? And it's probably also elaborating on some of those conversations that you have at the dinner time that, hey, we could use a little bit more space, right? We bought the house when the kids were young, and now they're teenagers, and we just need more space,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And is it the space size? Is it the functionality? We want to have more guests over, and so I want to have a better connection with the main living area and the backyard? Do I want to be able to have a kitchen that will have guests in and whatever that looks like?
Yeah.
I think it's probably more about the ideas, and then I would say that Pinterest. We've done them both multiple different ways because I over 20 years, right? We used to have 10 inches of stacks of magazines
Yeah.
that have been ripped out, right?
Oh my gosh.
I like this. I like this. It is funny on the Pinterest and those kind of things. Sometimes people forget to theoretically what they should do is actually put notes of what I like about it,
Yes.
right? Because sometimes what happens is they just gather, hey,
It's
I
a
like this. And
jumble.
I'm like, I don't even know why I cut that one out, right?
Yeah,
What is it that
that's true.
so those things do help, I would say. But we work really well with engineers, and I've had some of them who've come in and here's the plan. You know what I mean? They've laid every single thing out, right? Typically there's a little bit of still some refinement there.
Yeah,
I think it's probably more not necessarily about how it's probably about the use that you want the space and versus hey the exact configuration of some guide.
that's true. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and It's like letting the designers hear your problems or what bothers you about it, and then
Yeah.
let them kind of brainstorm from there and
Yeah,
take it from there.
exactly. Sometimes people feel like they have to have it all figured out when they come to us. We have both aspects, right?
Yeah.
We're like, "Hey, we don't know what can happen, and can you help us?" And, and then they feel like, hey, they've taken a year and a half to try and figure it out, so when they come to somebody and,
True.
somewhere in between there, I do have to say is that, there's a guidance that
Yeah.
we supply.
So, I mean, you've done so many remodels over the years and overseen tons of projects all around San Diego. What do you think separates a remodeling project that feels like it went smoothly from one that didn't go as well as you had hoped?
I think sometimes it's really successful ones are very collaborative. We all understand that we have to adjust. Sometimes we open things up and maybe it's there or not there. So when we have the opportunity to put in a lot of work on the front side,
Yes.
it's like we always call it slowing down to go fast. Right. So
Mm.
you do the work on the front side, right?
Well, and then just as a client, I guess it's just knowing will be unforeseen things that could occur, and going into things with a collaborative, open mind can be
Yeah.
beneficial.
I also, when you're looking for a company, I think it's really about looking for a company culture. And that company culture can be seen in a number of different ways. And I think, it's kind of a three-sided stool. It can be client, and then it can be company,
Mm.
and then it can be maybe vendor and subcontractor, right? All three of those have legs within this project. When one of them is more focused
Mm.
on something else. And I have seen companies here in San Diego that hey, their focus is all about money, and when it becomes that, you can start to see that. You
Yeah.
can see where project managers are incentivized to write change orders.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
that's like, no, this is a project manager is there to run your project and to safeguard and make sure that this process is he's the guide, right?
Yeah.
He's to walk make sure that you guys are safe and make sure that we're,
Yeah.
working on the best interest of you. So that's a little, the culture of the company. I think Jackson has a great culture. I think
Yeah.
that
Great.
they haven't lost sight of, hey, the company has to be profitable so we can be here tomorrow, right? So, and that we can hire good talent, right? And for that, people get rewarded because they have talented people who work on their projects, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that, hey, there's a sense of fairness and, sometimes, hey, we should have caught that on the front side and we're going to be financially responsible on the Jackson side,
You're gonna
right?
own it.
We're going
Yeah.
to own it, right? And that's part of the design build side, right? Hey, we're going to take the time to try and tear everything apart. Hopefully we're going to catch as much of that as we possibly can. The rule of remodeling, right? If you pay them, they will come. And that's called vendors and subcontractors, right? So if you make it
That's right.
if you make the process easier for them, right? They're going to help you with their estimates and they're going to help you. They're going to show up to the job sites and make sure that you're priority over another company.
Right.
And so it's a balancing act to make sure that everybody's needs are well taken care of in this
That's tough. It's tough to get it all working it's like a
process.
I imagine someone, like, juggling plates in
Yeah.
the air. It's just yeah, trying to
Yeah.
like a balancing act.
Yeah.
And building your team, are there specific qualities you look for when you are doing that hiring process? Are there specific talents that they should have or that you go, "Hmm,
That
that"
stand out.
Yeah.
I think that has probably been the biggest focus and aspect of Jackson, right? The goal is really, right, if you surround yourself with higher quality people, you're going to go farther, faster, quicker, right? Not having to be the smartest person inside the room, right?
Mhm.
Hiring people for, their strengths, that sort of thing. And we focus on the initial side of skill.
Yeah.
Right, so, you really can't get in the door without going through first HR, then HR and the manager, and then it really goes to the LT team,
Mhm.
which is the group of people who are actually helping lead the entire company to, success. But the goal on that is then that inner potential employee comes in and really they think that they're coming in to talk about their skill, and we're actually coming in to talk about their personality.
Are you a
Exactly.
team oriented?
Right.
Yeah. And there are certain people that, hey, we need in our organization that have different personalities, and
Yeah.
that position needs to help drive that project, right? Get it done, right? And then we need other people that, hey, are creative, and then we have to have other people who are, a high efficiency in accounting, and
Yeah.
it
Yep.
takes all
All the
right? I think
specialties.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. The top talent.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about owning whether it's a mistake made throughout the project. Would you say that doing the right thing was one of your mottos? I know your company was the winner BBB Torch Awards for ethics,
Mm.
and you've talked a lot about it over the years. So do you think that's been a value that just stayed in your mind throughout all these years, like doing the right thing?
Yeah. And I think it's doing the right thing when nobody's looking, and doing the right thing when everybody's looking,
Yeah.
right? And I think the great thing is, look, you're in a meeting and there's 25 people of our, weekly meetings, and we have a challenge on this job, and you just say, hey, tear out the countertops and get them redone,
Yeah.
right? They see that, hey, that's a cost to the company. And then they see that, hey, it's the right thing. And so the beauty about that is, right, I think others have that mindset,
Yeah.
and hopefully will to continue to follow through, because that's really at the end of the day, we're working with people and the relationships that we're having, and
And the client experience.
yeah,
It's like the
exactly.
homeowner hired you for a specific purpose and you just want it to be success. Everyone wants it to be successful.
I have a client, David Swim, who we worked on a big historical home, and we had a guest house and the main house. And the main house is this huge, beautiful 1900s home, right? We were reworking the guest house, and the framer actually had not framed the roof correctly. He had framed this pitch off. And we came out there and met with the client and the framer and the project manager. And I think we discussed different options, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, hey, look, tear that whole section off and reframe the whole thing. Right. And that was,
Wow.
a lot of work.
Hmm.
And it was really the framer's responsibility. But I said, hey, and I'll pick up half the cost.
Yeah.
But we got to get it done right. For that, we just had lunch with the gentleman and we did the
Hmm.
project 20 years ago.
Wow.
And he still mentions that day, that he remembers that, hey, I took the ownership and did this the responsibility, and didn't, there wasn't a big hoopla about it. And I don't necessarily remember, for me,
Hmm.
it wasn't this milestone in my life.
Wow.
Mhm.
It was just how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just but for him, it was like, hey, you know what? They just got it done right, and there wasn't no fuss. So,
Yeah. I mean,
hopefully that kind of stuff.
Integrity.
yeah. And I think
Other people.
that's what, as a homeowner, you remember. It's when people run into challenges. How are they handling those challenges? Because everything's great when everything's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when a project is finished and you do a job close and everything, what does success look like to you? Just like beyond just the project itself.
I mean, it's funny because some homeowners are very different, right? We're
Mhm.
going to close them out, and we always love to get the feedback of how the experience was and what maybe we could have done better, and so we can approve. What what's a win, right? For me is, I'm at the Del Mar Fair and I bump into 5 clients that I did work for, right? And we still love each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't
Let's
have
hug
to
it
go
out.
through that process.
Right.
Exactly. So I think it's when people remember the experience that they had, and
Mhm.
they feel like they remember who the remodeler was, right?
Yeah.
That's the referrals. I've been around now long enough where my clients are referring me to their kids.
Wow.
And you're like,
Mind blown.
yeah, man, am I getting old? But it's kind of cool when you think about people who, hey, I'm not just referring my friend, but I'm now referring the rest of my family, and that's when you know that, hey, you've done something right. It's people refer you and they understand the company and how that works.
And I mean, just the longevity that the company has had
Mhm.
is pretty amazing. I mean, any company, not and remodeling is so tough to stay in business.
Yeah.
Like I saw some horrible stat recently, and it was like, gosh, I mean, the fact that it's like year 37, whoa. And one thing that stands out about your career is you haven't just grown one company, you started a new manufacturing company in 2019 called Outdoor Elements.
Yes, and that's where I spend a little bit of my focus time. I've been blessed to have a group of really talented members of my team that really help organize and run the day-to-day
Mhm.
operations and allow me to come in and help with a little bit of guidance and knowledge what I have. And so as they and help set some goals. And then, Outdoor Elements has been a blessing, and it's allowed me to continue to use kind of my skills in that
Yeah.
method, right? And get to start something a little bit from the beginning again,
Yeah.
and use a different part of my brain. So
Yeah.
it's been rewarding on both aspects to be able to see Jackson grow and the people grow in responsibilities and skill sets and that sort of thing. And then, this other opportunity.
Impressive work from Outdoor Elements, I'm
Yeah.
telling you. I agree. And it must be it's unique in that you have a unique experience that you brought to helping design a product. You worked in remodeling for all these years, so did that give you a different
Yeah.
perspective?
It's so funny is, I mean, I think the difference is that we build a product around. And for those who don't know, this is a high-end outdoor patio cover that has louvers that open and close.
LED lighting.
Lots of good stuff, lots of different features and screens and heaters and all that good stuff. Um, I think what it has allowed me to do is that I literally, again, have set up a company around the customer, right?
Mhm.
So just as much as with Jackson, and it's around,
Yep.
say, typically the consumer. Now I've gone and not only thought about the consumer, but I'm also thinking about the individual who has to install. And so
Mhm.
as we've designed this and we've built this, and then we've enhanced it with different features and
Features.
those sort of things. The goal is, hey, how can I build a product that's easier to install, and it gives a high sophisticated
Yeah.
look through that. I also think that for us, our dealers appreciate that. Hey, man, the guy who started this came from exactly where I came from. Right? He
Yeah.
was in the trenches.
Right.
He's dug. He
They can
knows
relate.
what he means, what it means to dig in the dirt, right?
Mm.
And how to assemble these things. So I think it's pretty easy for us to be able to relate to our current dealer customers.
Mhm. Yeah.
So currently, we're actually in about 45 states and have about
Wow.
250 dealers.
Oh my That's come a long way. Wow.
It's all good.
Yeah, congratulations. So, to wrap things up, I think we're gonna shift gears,
Yeah.
and Diana's gonna ask you a few quick fire questions.
The scary
Favorite
part.
Yeah.
favorite.
All right, Todd. So, what trends or shifts in remodeling are you most excited about right now?
Well, I just think it's something since COVID, right? Is that and the rising cost of homes, right?
Mhm.
To purchase a new home. So I think I am now kind of have changed. I love the big remodels and changing those things, but I love that connection between the indoor and outdoor space is
Right.
really that's
Yeah.
I've kind of
Yeah.
fallen in love with but I'm on both sides, right? I love, hey, how are we going to
Okay,
tie
yeah.
that kitchen in, and now we carried it all
Carry
the
it
way
outside.
through to that
Yep.
outside space. So
Ah,
it's a great space. Outdoor living is probably one of the number one
yeah.
types of
Especially here.
remodels now. And so many different options now. Products are being designed more
Mhm.
specifically for outdoors, and so
Exciting.
lots of possibilities there.
Yeah, especially in Southern California. The
Yeah.
outdoor living's huge.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, so how do you see design build evolving over the next few years?
I think with all things, we're looking at, it's about refinement.
Mm,
Okay. And I think somewhere in the line, we're going to have AI. There's going to play a
yeah.
little bit more into this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I know our team is working feverishly to figure out what's working and what doesn't working. So that's a challenge in itself.
Right.
Right. And I think the goal on that is that, how can we reduce some of the mundane tasks
Right.
that we would typically take away a high skilled person, now can focus on the higher points,
Mhm.
right? The more concise items of that remodel. So I think there are more talent,
Mhm.
right? I mean, the remodeling side used to be this, stepchild, and it's actually a real industry, right? I mean,
Yeah,
um,
it's
it's come a long
uh,
ways.
yeah, interesting. Thank you for that. All right, I'm not gonna get choked up on the last one here. What kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind to JDR?
No, I'm gonna cry. I don't,
Mm.
it's funny is that if you take a look at that, I happened to be in a client's home the other day, and I was actually brought there for their outdoor space, right? And I had somebody step out, so I chose just instead of cancel the appointment, I said, "I'll just go to it," right? Carmel Valley there, and I met the homeowner, and then I told him who I was, and he goes, are you the Todd Jackson of Jackson Design? Right? And yeah, yeah, yeah.
One and the
Yeah,
same.
one of that, exactly. And then he called up his wife, and then his wife came in, and a friend next door came in anyway. We talked about a lot of different things. But, one of the things is he said, you have the best reputation here in town.
Oh my god.
Wow.
I don't necessarily know I would, say the best, but he did. So,
Yeah.
and I think, hey, if I had a legacy, that would be something that we want to be one of the best, right?
Mhm.
Not that I'm competitive, but the best, the best in, right? And but I think for me, I think it's hey, me as a person more than Jackson, right? Jackson is hey, we touched a lot of people, right? We changed a lot of we did a lot of remodels, we changed a lot of homes, that sort of thing. For me personally, I hope that there's a legacy that, hey, I changed personally, met people and they got to interact with me and they enjoyed that experience on their first the remodels. And then how I've had the pleasure of employing just, a huge amount of people, right? And we've changed with some different projects that we've done, but we just had a gentleman who retired after 18 years.
Yeah.
Right, and 18 years with us, right?
Mhm.
I mean, and we have several of those folks that are, right behind him. So, I mean, that's a legacy there in itself, just to be
That
able to
sure is.
say, somebody has given me, half their work life,
Right?
which
Yeah,
is amazing. I mean,
that is.
it doesn't happen a whole lot anymore. So it's,
That's
it's
true.
probably more about probably the people that we've touched and maybe the
Yeah.
employees that we've helped guide, and hopefully they've learned something before whether they choose to move on to do something a little bit different. I've had some people, wonderful designers who, have given me 8, 9 years of their entire life. And hey, I'm just looking for a different change. And I'm like, you know what? Is that a loss? Yes, but it was a gain. I mean,
Yeah.
how
That's
wonderful,
here. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We got 25% of something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of data. So
No, it's
that's
true.
probably the legacy that I would like to look
Yeah.
back on is, that
Yeah.
I'll remember some fond moments and
It's
Thank you.
about people.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, for people who are listening, maybe they're thinking about remodeling, do you have one piece of advice you would give them? If they're kind of on the fence, maybe they're a little scared to take that first step, what would you say to those people?
I think invest a little bit of time on the front side, making sure that you are working with the right company, right? We all have an investment that, hey, this is where our investment needs to be, right? We got to work around a number. But then it's really about making sure that you're finding a company that, really is going to meet your needs,
Mhm.
right? And can fulfill, and execute your project.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times clients ask a little bit more technical issues. Hey, tell me about your kitchens and tell me about this versus then standing back and say, okay, well, talk to me about the process that you prepare our estimate. Talk to me about the process of scheduling and hey, how are we going to communicate? And if we have a problem, who would I see? And hey, is the owner still available? And there's a number of those different things where it's more about the culture and the processes in the company than hey, how am I putting two sticks together? The technical side, and then you have you got an implementation and then just kind of a process and how that
Yeah.
works. That's to find the right company for yourself.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me here and
All right.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks very much. And that's a wrap on today's episode. If the conversation with Todd today sparked some ideas for your own home, we'll include resources and upcoming seminar information in the episode description to help you take the next step. Thanks for listening to Remodeling Reinvented. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars, and we'll see you next time.